Okay, how are we starting? We're starting out with talking about culture this morning.
Which is a big topic. Um, and we're going to just touch upon it this morning. But it's a big deal because it really does form our sense of self and our sense of how we regard others or take them in.
Right. And it's changing. It's subject to anicca, change, impermanence, transformation. And we really we identify with cultures, and yet we'll still change those cultures over the course of our lifetime, what we identify with and what we mix and bring to different cultures, our different cultures.
And the cultures themselves really change and morph. When I think about the culture in which I grew up in, not only, I don't think it exists quite like that anymore. It's changed.
Yeah, yeah. But I think what we're saying, that even with the change, it's such a strong conditioning for us. It's something that it's like the salt in the ocean. It's a really dominant condition for our lives, and we can't get away from it. And we're swimming in it.
Right. And sometimes we're so swimming in it that we don't even know we're swimming in it because we're just swimming. That's all we can do. We're swimming. And that's, the cliche is that's the air we breathe, right? If we're going to switch from a different element.
Right, right. And go to another element that it's not set in stone. Even we can look at each of the elements around culture, of that it's not permanent, and it's not one way, and it is often below the radar of awareness. That it's something that it takes effort to be aware of, and often others pointing it out to us. We can't even sometimes get there on our own.
Right. And that's why I think many people like to travel, because when you go to another culture, not only is the other culture hopefully interesting, but also you can see your own culture a little better from leaving it.
Right, right. And you don't even have to leave your home these days to travel to another culture, because everything's right there on the computer screen. Videos and movies and interactions, and we even have people from other cultures come into our Zoom rooms here with us.
Right. And of course, our Zoom room here, our reflective meditation events are their own culture too,
Mhm.
or we
Right.
could regard it that way. So that's what we're all about, cultural conditioning, which is really, cultures really do condition us strongly. That's what we're doing here together, is we're looking at our conditioning, including, but not entirely, many other aspects of it, but our cultural conditioning.
That conditioning, because it's often used in a certain way in the field of psychology, and then we also use it as a primary teaching. Conditionality comes from a kind of conditioning. Um, Nellie and I started to talk this morning about the ways that we're working with this conditioning. And one way in Buddhism that I've seen, and just coming off a retreat with people from other traditions, and also the reading that I've done, is that there's the tendency in meditation to want to transcend one's conditioning. Even in Buddhism, get outside of the understanding of conditionality to the unconditioned. So it's really the word conditioned is used a lot and in a few different ways when we're talking about it.
And that's where perhaps our path veers off from many other Buddhist traditions, which is we are not trying to transcend or get away from conditioning, including cultural conditioning, but we're trying to take a look at it, become more aware of it, know more about it, see how it's impacting us. And we sort of came up with a provisional view. I think we have to think this one through some more, because it's just popped up, but that cultural conditioning has a strong impact on all of the aspects on the Eightfold Path. most notably I came to, our beliefs, our views are definitely conditioned by culture, our actions certainly, and our speech.
Yeah. Yeah. And not easy, not hard to tag on your livelihood, um, you know, your sense of what meditation is and isn't. That's a very big part of your conditioning and your culture.
And your intentions, wow,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would be a big one.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the looking at conditioning, and on the Eightfold Path, part of the direction that we're going is we want to hear more about your conditioning, and we are really honoring the fact that each of us come from different conditions, and there's going to be some overlaps and some distinctions. But I also find that, especially being married to a person from another culture, there's this very strong aspect of wanting to keep one's culture and not wanting to have it be watered down or lost, in a fear of having certain cultural aspects being disregarded or not honored or not developed.
Yeah, the fear was so strong that when one of my older cousins, the first one, um, married a non-Jewish guy, my grandma sat Shiva for her, which meant in her mind she was dead.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how strong the push was to keep the culture, the Jewish culture,
Right,
and how
right,
strong the fear was, I would
right,
imagine.
right. Right. So in that situation, which in in my culture, we'd already lost the kind of roots, I'd say, even so to speak, to the Italian and German and Belgian cultures that I came from. But there would be like one or two things that we would create to try to keep that within our family. And pasta, like let's just say pasta is something that we feel very strongly about in our family, but other people don't feel that connection to it. So it's very interesting to make your new cultural traditions to try to keep them.
Well, that's interesting, Linda, because I dare say I don't know this. No, let me try to say it more accurately. Of all the I've noticed that so many cultures that I eat, their food has some form of pasta,
Yeah.
you know, whatever.
Well, and the Chinese culture is supposedly the first people for that created pasta or noodles. So, yes,
And we
there we
could
get
get
into the wars.
we could get into the noodles. We're just noodling around here anyway. um, so then there's the part about we live in a melting pot. There's so many cultures that surround us, probably, within a mile of where many of us live, some of us live, you could find different cultures. And I live down the block from the Jade District. I mean, it's the cultures have come, and then the Ukrainian neighborhood is just a little beyond that, et cetera. So we live in a melting pot. And then, as I said earlier, travel is very accessible now. We can get on an airplane and see so many other
Mhm,
cultures.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and an aspect of that is because we have access to a lot of different cultures. There's a way that we bring them back and then incorporate the things that fit for us, and we create a new culture from that. And there is something called an appropriation, and this is a term that's being used a lot of other cultures. And it's really, when a culture feels like you're not using their culture wisely or integrating it in a way that actually honors or feels right. Nelly, is something that you said, just feels right to that culture.
Feels not right. Doesn't feel
Feels,
like, yeah, right. Um, so we're just going to end with a paragraph from the book. Um, and why don't I read the first half of it and you read the second half of it, okay?
yeah.
The Buddha was prolific, and his teachings traveled the globe, merging and mixing with so many people, so many cultures, so many philosophies, and so many religions. we love the malleability of the teachings.
When Buddhism arrived in different countries, it encountered the existing religions and cultures, creating something new while intermingling with the traditions that were already there. One of the attributes of the Dharma is that it is open and inviting. It is inclusive, opening the door for those who are interested. And I'll say, whatever your culture is. And I think I'm on bells today.